Welcome back to Squawk Box. The Israeli death toll now from the attack by Hamas, now at least at 1,200 in Gaza, where Israel continues to strike back. More than 1,000 people have been killed. The war expected to escalate, with hundreds of thousands of Israeli ground forces gathering near Gaza. From the White House, President Biden called the Hamas attacks unadulterated evil and pledged continued support for Israel. And joining us right now is West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Capito. Good morning to you.
Good morning to both of you. Thank you.
The president with a powerful speech yesterday.
Yes.
Where do you think this all goes from here, and what do you think is going to be required from Congress?
Well, we had a briefing last night, all senators briefing, and both of our leaders, Senator Schumer, Senator McConnell, were very strong in our what we think is almost unanimous, maybe not quite unanimous, support of Israel. So I think that we will immediately address what their needs would be. Also, certainly looking after the Americans that are still there to make sure that we're doing all that we can do and be supportive of that. I would expect once we get back that we will have a broader discussion with Israel and Ukraine, and the border being a sort of three-prong supplemental. But at that point, that's just now formulating.
Okay, so we still have to figure out who's going to run the House.
I know.
That's going to be a big issue. And then the other question is how you think the dynamic has changed or not as it relates to funding of Ukraine, for example, because that was such a sticking point in what was taking place in the House and in the very idea of a shutdown.
Well, I was in the House for 14 years. I'm glad I'm not there now. But they are behind closed doors, I think, this today to try to reach consensus. I think there's nothing more emblematic of if you don't have a plan, if you throw somebody out as your speaker. I was a big Kevin McCarthy fan myself, served with him for a long time, thought he was doing a good job. You don't have a plan B, and then what if something happens? Well, guess what? Something happened. Something big happened. And so they're leaderless. And I think that is shows you that you just can't move in a direction where 8 people want to go without any kind of way to find a new leader. So they're going to struggle, I think. It appears that's what they're doing. And some of the early positions of those that are running for leader was no support for Ukraine. That seems to have tamped down a bit. I mean, I'm not in the room, so I don't know what they're actually saying. But I think the realization of we need to look more globally here at what's going on.
Because of the events this week.
Because of the events this week. I think I don't see how they can not be tied together.
Right. But do you think there's been this is a larger leadership question about the role of the United States in the world.
Right.
And we have seen over the last 5 and 6 years, if not more, a retreat from that position. Mm-hmm. Do you think that changes, that the political dynamic in this country changes as it relates to that?
I do think there'll be a change when we get back. I do think that there will be.
Do you think the public has a different view of that as it relates because of this? Because it was very clear that the public seemed to support this kind of retrenchment in some way.
Well, I think it's a combination thing. I think that the retrenchment both is on the fiscal side, quit spending so much money somewhere else when we have so many needs at home. I think that's a prevailing argument. But also, we don't need to be the superpower and help everybody. But I think there's going to be a realization by the public and others. I'm from a small state that's very connected to Israel. Even though we don't have a large Jewish population, we have a lot of Christians that are very much involved and have traveled to Israel many, many times. So I think that just brings us onto a larger stage and hopefully people, but we have to explain it. I mean, you can't just assume that people are going to realize that we need to be the superpower that we are, and with that comes obligations. And so I think that's going to be incumbent upon us to bring that voice, and that's why I hope this leadership race wraps up so that we can be that strong voice.
It's happening at a time when our national debt and deficit has grown substantially. Right. And when you've got Treasury yields that are higher, much higher than they have been to this point, and that does start to raise questions about what we give on. And as part of your explanation to people, what do you say? We have to support this, and that means we cut back here or there. It means we raise taxes. It means we do what?
Well, I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and I think that the deal that was struck in March actually did pull back on spending, not hugely, understandably, but at least a step in that right direction. And I think it's about a matter of setting priorities. And so I think that as we look at our own homeland security, our security at the border, it's all tied in together. And so I think we have to maybe relook at our priorities in terms of, cutting is always hard. But I think that's what we're going to have to do in order to get a hold of the deficit. And that was the direction that we were going on until the House sort of blew up on us.